So this is the feedback for the 2002 multiple choice quiz that we've created that self-marks. Question 1 was, if an Aboriginal elder describes the spiritual ancestry of his people, what is he referring to? So the four options are their native title, their totemic symbol, their main source of food, and their most local animal. So the keywords there are spiritual ancestry of his people. That's really what we're looking at. We're looking at how their spiritual ancestors were in the time of the dreaming. So let's have a look at the first option there, their native title. Well, that's a concept that was introduced in regards to the land rights movement, so that's not correct. Their main source of food doesn't have anything closely linked to spiritual ancestry. It's not the same thing, and the same as their most common local animal. That's not how it works at all. So they're kind of tied in to the concept of totems and totemic symbols, but they're not the same thing. Often totems were animals, but it doesn't mean it's the same thing. So the correct answer there is their totemic symbol, which is how their ancestral or their ancestors were in the dreaming. It should be a pretty easy response, this one. It shouldn't be too hard for anyone, but just make sure that when you're answering these questions, you're disregarding the ones that are completely wrong and looking for the most correct answer. Question 2. Which of the following churches had the lowest proportion of its members join the Uniting Church in 1977? So this is obviously a very simple one, but one that shows you really need to know the details for this and which ones are involved. So the four options we have are the Church of Christ, the Methodist Church, Presbyterian Church, and the Congregational Church. So first off, we should automatically be able to discount that first one, the Church of Christ, because it wasn't a part of the Uniting Church. The next thing we need to look at is, if we have a look back to the iBook, and we have the details here in the iBook. So 100% of Methodists joined, which is why we no longer see Methodist churches really in Australia. We had 95% of Congregationalists joined and only 65% of Presbyterians joined. And it's because of this question in 2002 that we said here that the percentages are really important for us to learn. Okay, so Presbyterians had the least members join the Uniting Church. So as we've said, it's really important to learn those percentages. So Presbyterian is the correct answer for number 2. Question 3, which of the following was not integral to the arguments presented by the Aboriginal people in support of traditional land ownership in Wick and Mabo? Okay, so if we have a look, we have the Torrens title system, the location of the totems, the stories of the dreaming, and the elders' customary possession. So we should know automatically that the elders' customary possession is something that actually needs to be proven for the land rights, so that's one that's obviously very important. Obviously, the dreaming is important, the stories of the dreaming and the relationship to Aboriginal people, particularly with the land, that's obviously very important. The location of the totems, obviously, because the totems are based on the land, and that's where the relationship comes from, so they're obviously very important as well. So all of those three are correct at the moment, and then the odd one out is Torrens title, which you won't find anywhere in the iBook, and that's because it is a real estate term, so that's the odd one out. So that's the incorrect answer is the Torrens title system. Question 4, which best explains the growth in Pentecostalism in Australia from 150,665 members in 1991 to 174,720 members in 1996. So we have four options: denominational switching, evangelism, immigration, and population increase. So it's a very short period to suggest population increase. You're not going to have that many Pentecostals born in that time period, particularly for such a tiny, small percentage of all Christian adherents in Australia. So we can discount that one straight away. Evangelism might look like a more correct answer, but it's not really in this case, because it's where we see all people joining the Pentecostal church. They're not coming from other churches, they're coming predominantly from other Christian denominations or other Christian variants. Immigration is also not correct, because most people coming in that time period were not Pentecostals. We had some Catholics coming in and some other variants, and mostly other faiths coming in, but not Pentecostals. So the most correct answer here is denominational switching, which is where in this particular time period too, in the early 90s to the mid 90s, we had particularly sharp growth in the number of Pentecostals, and that came from other Christian variants moving into other Christian variants. Question 5, which of the following best demonstrates Aboriginal spirituality in its connection to the land? So we have, again, the key words here are demonstrates Aboriginal spirituality and its connection to the land. So which shows us how Aboriginal spirituality is connected to the land. Okay, so we have to be really clear about what the questions ask us. So we have the reconciliation walk across the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Well, that's about reconciliation and other churches' responses to it, and the way Aboriginal people have been treated by governments. So that's not about the Aboriginal people's connection to the land directly. The education of Aboriginal children in traditional languages, well, that's about connecting to culture, but it is not about their connection to the land. The language and the land are not the same thing. Third one down is a pursuit of land claims under the Wick judgment in Australian states and territories, which might look like it's closer to a correct answer because it's talking about land claims under Wick in the Australian states and territories. But it's not about the spirituality in this sense. It's not the closest one about the spirituality. And the last one is the demand to have Aboriginal skeletons returned from museums in the United Kingdom for reburial in Australia. This is the most correct answer here. Response D, the demand to have Aboriginal skeletons returned from museums in the United Kingdom for reburial in Australia, because it shows that for Aboriginal people it's most important that they do maintain those ties to the land, okay, through their spirituality. So that's why that's the most correct answer and the others aren't correct. You should be able to discount the first two, and when it comes down to this one, we're looking for Aboriginal spirituality in particular for this question, and that's why this is the more correct response. Question 6, people who believed in the power of crystals are best described as supporters of which of the following? We need to make sure that we don't get silly ones like this wrong. We shouldn't get any wrong, but this one is really, really, really easy. Obviously, a mainstream religion, well, that's just a bit far too broad to be anything real. Economic rationalism, well, no, that's very, very conservative and has nothing to do with religion anyway because it's about economics. Environmentalism, again, it's not a religious-based thing, so we should know it's New Age religions. That's the obvious answer for this one. Question 7. Most Australians of European background did not understand Aboriginal culture and spirituality. Which of the following resulted from this lack of understanding? Okay, so what we're looking at is understanding Aboriginal culture as one and the spirituality and what resulted as a part of it. Okay, so Aboriginal people were ignored. Well, we know that's not true because missions and reserves were started all over Australia to deal with the what was seen as an issue of Aboriginal people. Question 2 is Aboriginal beliefs and practices flourish. Well, that's obviously completely the opposite of what did happen. Question D, or response D, is the partnership between churches and Aboriginal elders developed. Well, that didn't happen either. So this is a band 1 question. It's so easy. Missionary activity was carried out by the Christian churches, which we know did happen, and it was a response to the fact that they did not understand, or European people did not understand Aboriginal culture and spirituality, and as a result tried to assimilate Aboriginal people into white European society and culture. Last question, we have a source here showing the growth of these religions in Australia, religious affiliation in Australia, and they're all separating. So we have Christianity as a general group, Buddhism, Islam, and Judaism. And the question is, which of the following religious traditions had the greatest rate of membership increase between 1991 and 1996? So the greatest rate means not the greatest number, but it means the greatest percentage. So that's what it means by rate, the greatest percentage of increase. Okay, so it's not the number of people that it's increased by. So if we look at in this case, we've got Christianity has gone from 12,465,000 to 12,582,000, which is an increase of about 120,000 people, which is, I think, the highest number of adherents increasing in this time period, but it's not the highest percentage because we have here Judaism from 74 to 79. Well, that's obviously very low, so we can discount that. Then we have Islam going from 147 to 200,000, so that's a little bit over a quarter, a 25% increase, slightly over a 25% increase. And then Buddhism, we have jumping up about 60,000, which is a little bit higher than Islam, which is why Buddhism is the correct answer here. So there's a little bit of maths involved in this one, and you needed to identify that obviously it's not the greatest number increase, it's the greatest rate or greatest percentage increase in adherence, which is why Buddhism slightly beats out Islam in terms of the growth as a percentage um, of current adherence from 1 year to the or one census collection time to the next.